Minneapolis, St. Paul, The Fan.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Festival of Trees at Mall of America is a free walk-through winter wonderland of extraordinary decorated trees with awesome gifts on them. You can find it now through Wednesday, January 3rd, located on Level 3 Culinary on North, benefiting the MOA Community Foundation.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. Nordo in for PA. PA with some vocal maintenance days. He returns Friday Feast Roseville this Friday. Buffalo Wild Wings, PA in Charch, a feast. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to chatting with Gabe Henderson, Vikings Entertainment Network, Vikings.com, at Gabe A. Henderson on the tweet.
I'm good. Another week. It's been a short week, as you know, just coming back from Vegas and having a Saturday game. But I just feel like coming back from Vegas makes any week short. So to have a shorter game this week, feel like it's been flying by thus far.
Yeah, it's well, you got a shorter stint. How many days were you in Las Vegas, Gabe?
4, I believe. I got there Thursday and left Sunday after the game.
Okay, that's
you guys were there all week, right?
Yeah, that's a smart play, Gabe. So we arrived on Wednesday and we left on Monday morning. 5 days too long. 3 days, perfect. 4 days, we can stretch it if we're responsible. 5 days is too long. And you know what? I feel like in some ways that Vikings-Raiders game took some time off my life as well. And we're all happy that we get to actually look back at that game as a victory and not a loss. But with that said, part of that mix is that Nick Mullins replaces Josh Dobbs in that game, wills them to a field goal drive, ultimately the decision, the game-winning drive of the game. Now it's announced yesterday that he is indeed your starter for Saturday at the Cincinnati Bengals. What are your thoughts and things that have come to mind going from Sunday really through the announcement yesterday?
Yeah, I think just going back to Sunday, the first ball or the first throw that Nick Mullins threw to TJ Hawkinson that got tipped, but TJ still caught it. The first thing that came to mind was, okay, this guy has chemistry with these guys. And then we saw a couple of plays later. He converted, I believe, was a second or third down to Jordan Addison for about 20 yards. And that's one thing I've always appreciated about Nick Mullins is he knows his strengths. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He doesn't have the biggest, legs to be able to, break tackles and I guess extend the play as far as Josh Dobbs does. But at the same time, he's big on timing and he's big on accuracy. So a lot of those throws that he made this past Sunday, he was throwing it before the receiver were even getting out of the route. So that is something that makes up for his lack of arm talent, is the fact that he understands the routes and where the ball should be. And I'm just excited to see what that looks like. It wasn't a surprise to see or to hear Kevin O'Connell announce Nick Mullins as a starting quarterback yesterday. But at the same time, I do agree with KOC when he said, I believe Nick Mullins gives us the best chance to win right now, simply because of the chemistry and timing that he has with his receivers. Just he doesn't have to overthink anything because he knows where everybody's going to be, and that's simply with him just being in this offense this past 2 years. That's the nod that he had over Josh Dobbs.
Indeed, and that's the thing. Backup. He's a career backup quarterback, so it's not an argument that the spectrum is not very broad when we're looking at Josh Dobbs and we're looking at Mullins. So really what puts him, the knowledge of the scheme, and I love that you mentioned in time, because whether it's, I'm looking at a text message I got right now, 64686, and I've actually discussed this with you a couple of times just as I've pondered it, the idea that did he lose the confidence of receivers? I'm regarding Dobbs. Mm-hmm. And in terms of leading to some drop passes, our receivers not finishing routes. Did that creep into your mind at all? You just think about where you want that ball, where you need that ball, and when it's not there, is it possible that you stop trusting the guy that's on the delivery side of things?
Yeah, there's a layer of trust. And like I said, I can't speak for Vikings receivers. The only thing we can kind of do is base certain things off of what we saw on the field. But just speaking from just prior experience, when you have a quarterback in there that you haven't really built a chemistry with, and you don't really know if he's on the same page as you at all the time, it does force a receiver to get alligator arms. It basically get shorter arms across the middle. If the ball's in front of you, you're not going to reach out too far because you don't want to get your ribs broke or another painful injury. So I'm not sure if that was the case with Dobbs, but I'm just looking at that, Justin Jefferson play where he got hurt, and it's just like, if the ball is on him and, he catches the ball in stride from Josh Dobbs, then that play probably goes for another, 5 to 10 yards. So we'll see what it looks like with Nick Mullins. But, yeah, as a receiver, you definitely don't want to be second-guessing yourself running across the middle, whether the rules favor the offense or not. Some defenders will much rather just take that 15-yard penalty and set a tone versus let you make a catch and then the offense gets momentum. So we'll see what Nick Mullins looks like on Saturday.
Have you seen JJ around the facility at all? Is he wheelchair bound? Is he walking around? Does he still have that massive smile on his face that I see every time I encounter him when I'm there on Wednesdays at the facility? Got any inside super greasy intel on, because we need him on the field on Saturday, and he's going to see Burrow. Now, Burrow's sidelined for the year, but I'm sure Joey will make it downfield side and they'll hug it out pregame. And of course, Jamar is going to be lining up on the other side of the field for the Bengals. So have we seen JJ walking around there? Do we know anything about Justin Jefferson?
Yeah, so JJ is in the building. He's not in a wheelchair. He's
thank God.
He's walking just fine, and I'm sure there are some fans that saw the viral clip online last night or on Twitter or X. Basically, Justin Jefferson was giving a couple of kids a shopping spree at Target for the holidays. And someone captured on their cell phone the kid, of course, just being a kid. He was like, JJ, you're hurt. Are you playing this Saturday? And JJ was like, of course. So
there we go.
Who knows how that looks as far as from our training perspective? They probably have, other things that they would like to say, but JJ said he was playing according to the viral video online that went viral last night.
Jake Browning was here, and your first season with the Vikings was 2019, right?
2020.
2020, okay.
Yep.
So Jake Browning, I believe, was here for 2 of those years. He was undrafted cap, maybe 2019, the year before, former Washington Husky. He has that awesome, I think it was his sophomore season, and then a shoulder injury in college and kind of worked his way back, but Vikings give him a shot. Anything you remember about Jake Browning, as now he's replaced Joe Burrow in Cincy, and we'll see him on Saturday, but anything you remember about Browning during his time on the practice fields, at least, for the Minnesota Vikings? Yeah,
I think the first thing that comes to mind is that 2021 training camp, the Fan Fest that we had that year. And I guess a quarterback in the quarterback room. This is when the COVID protocols were in place. And if you tested positive and you were close contact, you had to miss a couple of days outside of the facility. Well, apparently that happened in the quarterback room, and Jake Browning was the only non-close contact. So during that night practice, I'm sure Vikings fans remember, it was the Jake Browning versus the Jake Browning show. He played offense. I mean, he literally played all-time quarterback. And from that day until seeing him in practice, at later dates in training camp, he kind of reminds me of Nick Mullins in the sense where he doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not the tallest guy. He's not the fastest guy. But if he's on the same page and has the timing right with his receivers, he can nickel and dime you down the field. So Jake Browning, I'm expecting to, see Brian Flores disguise a lot of coverages and a lot of blitzes that way. But Jake Browning is a guy that if you give him time, he can nickel and dime you down the field. And, I mean, we've seen him throw for over 300 yards already this season. I mean, last week he threw for over 220, I believe. And this is a Cincinnati Bengals offense that's similar to this Vikings offense, where you have the weapons at receiver, you have a decent O-line, you have a decent tight end, you just have a backup quarterback playing. So I'm interested to see how Brian Flores and Kevin O'Connell scheme up a guy who used to wear purple in Jake Browning.
Yeah, and that's where I went down that road with Florio a bit. And yes, if we're going to go 1, 2, 3, the Bengals certainly, when healthy, have a better top 3 wide receiver core than the Vikings do. You need JJ, and we love what Addison's doing, but still, I would say that T. Higgins is more accomplished at this point in his career. Tyler Boyd, one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL because of Higgins and because of Jamar Chase. But it's almost like that's kind of a blueprint where, in the end, when we look back at Dobbs and we'll appreciate Atlanta, we'll appreciate about half of the Saints game and what we were able to gain from now. I mean, the third win on Sunday, albeit he was pulled. But the idea of in time, like you were mentioning, that you get JJ in time on that throw where he gets hit in the back. He braces himself. Maybe he misses, makes a missed tackle and finds an extra 10, 15 yards. Addison, that move he made on the sideline from Mullins, extra yardage, getting it in time. I look at the Bengals in some ways, and we don't have near the running game that they have with Mixon, but getting guys in space, in stride, and kind of taking that load of work, just not throwing it 60 on a dime, but 20 on a dime, and letting those guys handle the business.
That's what you want. You don't want to put the pressure on the quarterback to be able to win you the game. If you're either team right now, you want to put the ball in, give your playmakers the ball in space and let them just go be playmakers. And for this Minnesota Vikings team, if JJ is back on Saturday, that's letting him get going early. KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. I believe this is a Cincinnati Bengals team that have given up the most yards to a tight end this year in all of the NFL. So there's going to be opportunities for not only just TJ to get the ball again, but also for guys who are lining up in the slot to be able to make some plays. So it's more so of just, getting Nick Mullins comfortable early. And that just starts off with a couple of play action passes. Or even last week we saw Josh Dobbs, I think the first play of the game or second play of the game, it was a quick 5-yard hitch route to JJ. That was almost a pick six. But my heart dropped also. But clearly that was the emphasis on offense, was get JJ the ball and let him make a play. You got to be a little bit more discreet on how you do that. But at the same time, it should not come down to Nick Mullins winning us this game on Saturday. It should be a collective unit, and I would probably lean more towards the receivers and running backs and defense versus, hey, we got this quarterback and he's going to win us this game.
I'm going to pause right now, Gabe, and if you're cool with it, I'd love to do another segment, and I want to hit on a couple of wide receivers in particular, not named Justin Jefferson, or at least one. He's had some dropping.
Let me forget.
He's had some dropping-related issues here.
Yep.
I just used what's
just
up there.
I'm
Couldn't
here.
tell you which one's which.
Can you hear me?
1819?
Hey, Gabe, can you roll to the audio board in TCO Studios on-air production meeting here, and we'll get that audio out of the mix during the break, okay? That's Gabe Henderson. We got a little bit of a technical difficulty. It's all good. We'll fix it around. Gabe Henderson, I do want to talk with him about not only the dropping issues that we saw with KJ Osborne. Can we get that to stop and be done? I got a ton of text messages on this, and I'm wondering the same thing. Marcus Davenport, is he still on the team? What's going on with him? What's up with him? But to the defense as well, Ivan Pace, so many talkers to get into with a Saturday game, a short week in front of us. Will Jaron Hall be the backup? We're going to chat about these things and shoot the bleep. Gabe Henderson, Vikings.com, Vikings Entertainment Network, with me right around the corner. It's 9 to noon on the Fan.
We are professional grade.
KFAN.
Let's take some calls from the request line.
Get ready to laugh as the renowned comedian Brian Regan is scheduled to light up the stage at the State Theater in Minneapolis on New Year's Eve. You can head over to our contest page for a chance to win a pair of tickets right now. That's KFAN.com, keyword contest to enter.
What you doing from the front? What you doing from the back?
Freak a leg!
Baby, break it down like that.
Nordwin for PA. Maxx Fuller produces. Gabe Henderson, Vikings.com, back at TCO Studios in Eagan. We got a little sneak peek of some VEN production.
Yes, sir.
Gabe, what was that? It sounded like Tatum. Do we know what we're going to be hearing or seeing via Vikings.com that we can promote, or is it super secret?
No, it's actually a new edition of Pick Six this week. It is
sweet.
a series where we get 6 answers. 6 fans ask, which fans should do it every week. Send your fan questions to either Vikings Twitter or Tatum's Twitter. Basically, having any questions that you like, and she answers them or gets people to answer those questions, and we put it out on a weekly and or bi-weekly basis. So that was just a quick check pregame tease that Tatum gave you guys.
No, it's perfect. I love it, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And in some ways, we could almost treat this like a pick six, because I can tell you, and with a team full of talkers and a ton of positive things, there are some themes developing. And I want to start with one of them here, where KJ Osborne, it can't get much worse over the time that I've seen KJ in a Vikings uniform than what we saw in Las Vegas, where as bad as it got with Dobbs, to the point where he needed to be removed from the game, and Nick Mullins comes in, everything for KJ felt like he was either walking in cement or everything was harder than it had to be. The simple plays weren't being made. Is that going back to the trust thing that I asked you about last segment? Is, how much of that is on KJ? Can we expect him to be better? Where are we at with KJ in terms of just what we saw Sunday, and frankly something that's kind of been creeping in during Dobbs' tenure as quarterback for the Purple? And how does it get better as soon as Saturday in Cincy?
Yeah, I believe, having 15 receptions and not even 75 yards in the span of 4 games, like as a receiver, that makes you frustrated. And I believe KJ has been thrown into a new role with Justin Jefferson being out, and a lot of that role has been, running a lot of routes that, stretch the defense, that, get pull safeties out. So AKA decoy routes.
Yeah.
And while they're, viable options, when you look at a young quarterback that has run that play maybe 2 or 3 times in practice and never hit KJ on that route, chances are he's probably not going to be looking for KJ when it comes to a game versus Kirk, where you're pretty much everyone is a viable option every single game. And we've seen, KJ's play kind of diminish with Kirk not being in there. And I believe, just having that chemistry, not having that chemistry has been a factor in that. And I'm expecting KJ to have a better game this week simply because Nick Mullins knows the offense. He knows all the progressions. And now with Justin Jefferson hopefully being back and this offense hopefully being, at least a shell of what it was with Kirk when Kirk was playing, I'm expecting KJ to get a few more targets. So we'll see what that looks like. We saw Jordan Addison get some of those 2 wide receiver reps with Justin Jefferson last week when JJ was not hurt. So we'll see what that looks like this week if JJ is not able to play.
The JJ situation, certainly that would be the A topic in terms of this offense. Although I in some ways, I would argue, I hope Brian O'Neill's okay quickly.
Yeah.
I hope Dalton Reisner, he came back in the game. I hope he's all good. Yep. This hip thing snuck up on all of us, or at least it snuck up on me. Ed Ingram, I need him back. But JJ told a kid that he was shopping with that he's going to play, so I trust JJ. Alexander Madison, though, and many will disagree with me, and that's fine. And this run game isn't great, but it's been better, averaging $130 on the ground over the last 5 without Kirk. So we like that number, that stat. He was churning them out against the Vegas Raiders before that ankle got weak, and that sneakily for me, Mullins, if it's Jaron Hall, I don't care who's in there if it's not Kirk. The run game has mattered more than it already kind of mattered before. And Madison, as many polarizing opinions that exist, I need him in this game. And I honestly didn't love what I saw out of Kenny Nwanwu from just a pure running back perspective. That worries me from a depth standpoint. How important is it that we get Madison back in the mix as early as this Saturday, but certainly soon?
Very important, because people look at the stat sheet and they say, well, Madison hasn't rushed for a 100-yard game and hasn't scored a rushing touchdown this year. But at the same time, what Alex does that does not show up on the stat sheet is very valuable. And that's pass blocking. That's protecting the quarterback. That's just being a smart player out there, knowing where he's supposed to be at all times. And having him here is beneficial for this Vikings offense. And hopefully we can get that ground game going. This is a Cincinnati Bengals run defense that isn't the greatest. Like they've given up some key yards on the ground. And Alex right now, just being that veteran presence, the only veteran presence in that running back room, is going to be key to get him going and ultimately get our offensive lineman back. I mean, you hate to see there was a point where we only had 2 starting offensive linemen in the game with Garrett Bradbury and Christian Darrisaw in that Las Vegas Raiders game last week. So I'm excited to see who comes back and how that affects the run game, because we definitely need to get that going with the new quarterback under center and Nick Mullins.
Absolutely. Now, with the defense and Flores speaking to the media yesterday, there were a couple of audio clips I'll be using during the final hour and dig back into B-Flow and throw out some big opinions on the defense. But whether it's Ivan Pace and you get positive news, Jordan Hicks might be on closer on the horizon of returning than some would have thought. That's sweet. But Josh Metellus and Ivan Pace, when you kind of unpack everything, as important as Danielle Hunter is, totally get it. But those 2 guys, for me, I don't. You wouldn't have probably seen this TV copy as you were watching the game in person like I was. But they listed it out, and I saw it on one of the overhead screens. where basically all the positions that Josh Metellus has played this year, and they might even have had to make up a couple of names. it was left D end here, then he's an outside linebacker, then he's a Will, he's a Sam, he's a Mike, he's in everything. He's played both safety spots. Why wouldn't he be covering people in the slot? So, these two guys in particular, at the end of the season, however long Brian Flores is here, one thing I'll look back on, and I'll just think about two guys that exploded on the scene, Mr. Metellus and Mr. Pace.
Yeah, I'm looking at Mr. Pace right now as being in the consideration for Defensive Rookie of the Year, and then Josh Metellus being in the conversation for Most Improved Player. Like, both of those guys have been just a key contributors to this Minnesota Vikings defense, and for Brian Flores to be able to notice both of those guys' skill set and put them in situations where they're both able to thrive. That says a lot about who Brian Flores is as a coach. Undrafted rookie in Ivan Pace, undersized guy. I mean, yeah, he did lead college football in tackles last year, but still, it's, why would you, people were saying, well, why didn't this guy go drafted? And then for the Vikings to basically say, okay, this guy's going to be our starting linebacker, that is a guy in Brian Flores who understands talent. And then for Josh Metellus, who's literally just been trying to find a home here, find a role. Is he a safety? Is he a box linebacker? Is he, what is he? And for Brian Flores to basically say, yeah, whatever questions you have for what is he, that's what he is for our defense, and that's how we're going to use him. A lot of that credit goes to Brian Flores. Like, granted, the guys still have to go out there and play, but I'm excited to see, just their roles, both of those guys' roles continue to evolve as this defense continues to get better. I mean, they've both been great in the run and the pass. So hopefully that continues on Saturday against the Bengals.
Last thing for you, and we're going to jump back to the quarterback conversation.
Yep.
If you had to guess, which actually you will have to guess, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here and guess. Is it Jaren Hall or Josh Dobbs that backs up Nick Mullins? In some ways, hopefully Mullins just gets through the game, and this is an arbitrary conversation of emergency versus backup. But who do you think backs up Mullins on the depth chart on Saturday?
I personally think you have to continue to go down the line. If a quarterback goes down, you go with the next guy, and you go with the next guy, and then you recycle back up to the top when somebody gets healthy. And in this case, I believe Jaren Hall should be the backup. He knows this offense a little bit better. We've seen him make some splash plays when he was the quarterback. And Josh Dobbs, that's not to say that he's not a legit quarterback in this league, but at this point, if someone gets benched, objectively speaking, it's next man up. And, we'll come back to Josh, if things, have to go that way. Hopefully it doesn't, everybody stays healthy, but still you would think that Nick Mullins gets the nod and then Jaren Hall is the guy right afterwards. So, we'll see what it looks like on Saturday. I believe all three quarterbacks have been dressed out the past 2 to 3 games, so I'm expecting all three quarterbacks to dress out on Saturday, and we'll see who that emergency guy will be if something catastrophic, hopefully not, happens to any of our quarterbacks on Saturday.
Thank you for joining me this morning, and thank you for the Pick 6 preview, and looking forward to talking with you later this week about this game on Saturday with the Bengals.
Appreciate you having me on, Nordo. Talk to you Friday.
That is Gabe Henderson of the Vikings Entertainment Network, Vikings.com. He's at TCO Studios. I'm here in St. Louis Park at the 651 Carpets Plus Studios. And you know what, Max? I've completely butchered the clock. So, break times and straddling, that's kind of an L with this 10 o'clock hour.
That's normal 9 to noon, though. You're just keeping up with standard practice.
I can't help it. It wears off on me. It has infected me, tainted me. But we're going to pause here, and then when we come back, we'll jump back into some Vikes Bites. I have some text messages, and then News du Nord, Maxwell style, when we return 9 to noon. But the first, the Vikings report. Let's do this with the Pettin Report 9 to noon. Let's listen to that now.
Time now for the Vikings Report presented by the Minnesota Lottery. Play the new Vikings scratch game for a chance to win up to $100,000. Vikings assistant coach Mike Pettin joins PA after this from the Minnesota Lottery. KFAN, The Fan.
Follow The Fan this football season on Twitter and Instagram, and you could win $100 in gas money thanks to your local Chevy dealers. One winner will be chosen every Friday, brought to you by your select Heartland Chevy dealers. Find new road.
In a bag, I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on. I ain't happy, I'm feeling I'm glad I got sunshine in a
Norderwind for PA 9 to noon. News to Nord around the corner. A couple of text messages, 64686. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line. Love the Gorillas, by the way.
Oh, they're the best, man. They got a couple of all-time songs. A lot of random songs in the mix, but a couple of all-timers.
A lot of terrible songs.
Yeah, to be honest. Yeah, I was trying to be nice, but they got a lot of stinkers.
But like Demon Days, Plastic Beach.
Feel Good Inc.
But they have a couple of just start-to-finish awesome albums. I got this text message. Now you can tell me now, as a Titans fan, you're feeling this vibe with Will Levis right now because he just rolled out in prime time. I mean, it's up and down.
Yeah,
but it's getting there.
It's a roller coaster.
I mean, if DeAndre Hopkins thinks he's going to be great, says that he's a dog. I mean, DeAndre's seen a lot.
You got to roll with them. They have quite a connection. There's a lot of things, pros and cons, to say about Will Levis, but one thing that you can say for sure is him and Hopkins have a connection.
Oh, hell yeah. And it's it's a freaking rocket launcher that's attached to his shoulder.
I've never seen a Titans quarterback get the ball down the field like that in my lifetime.
I mean, him and maybe Josh Allen, he had an early throw through two defenders that found the tight end. Is it Okonkwo? I forget what his...
I think you're right.
But it was, that's picked off from Kirk 10 times out of 10.
Right.
Probably headed the other way for a touchdown. But anyway, Titans not in the playoff mix, but they beat the Dolphins. The reason I that came to my mind is because of delusion. And as a Vikings fan, I've enjoyed through my 39 years on this planet. I'd say 6 or 7 when I saw at least 3 decades as a fan. Maybe two of those decades in pure, unabated delusion.
Yeah, just hooking it straight up to the vein.
Correct. I'm in.
Smoking the copium.
So I played this game once where Ben Lieber, he'll be in studio tomorrow. I noted that his first 4 seasons, now he was not a rookie, but after his time in San Diego, he comes to Minnesota, that his first 4 seasons, statistically, were actually better than the first 4 seasons of Anthony Barr, 9th overall selection. And so this is what Ryan did. Nick Mullins, his first 17 starts, 4,552 yards, and 24 touchdowns. For this other guy, 17 starts, 4,552 yards, 25 touchdowns, so one more. Who is it? Andrew Luck.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
You can't argue. The
Facts
numbers
are facts.
The stats don't lie. And this texter, Ryan, he could have lied, actually. So in this case, I'm trusting him the way that maybe KJ Osborne and company did not trust Dobbs. But I'm going to trust Ryan here. Based on the numbers, Nick Mullins, just as effective as Andrew Luck. So
How about that?
So as we roll into Saturday, because we're emotional, and if you're like me, you're mildly delusional. Just keep that in your back pocket. Hot takes at happy hour. You might not know Isaac like I do, but this is something he would tell me. I would laugh, and then I would pay my tab. Hall's got to be the backup. That's and I agree with most people, and maybe if there's more time in the final hour, we can jump back into that. For me personally, and it's not an indictment of Dobbs. I think in some ways we got as much as we should have and could have expected from that. You get the 2 victories on the front end, ugly games with Denver and the Bears. You get out with a win in some ways despite what you saw from the QB last weekend. But you're 3-2 in this stretch. Experiment needs to end. And unless there are significant health-related issues with both Nick Mullins and Jaren Hall, I just don't believe that you can put Dobbs back on the field. I think it's done. So not an indictment of him overall. You get a guy for, I think you got Dobbs, and it was a conditional 7th that based on his playing time this season could turn into a 6th in the draft. And you gave the Cardinals a 6th rounder for him. So you needed somebody. Mullins was on IR at the time. You made the play. You got some of that magic. The pixie dust of sorts. The buzz has worn off. And now we are here with a hangover, hoping Mullins is that hydration that we need starting this Saturday in Cincinnati. Were there any Vikes bites that you still had in your pocket when we were up against it last hour?
Mostly just quarterback related bits.
Okay.
Well, I guess once on the injury side, on the other side of the ball, Bengals star receiver Jamar Chase was listed as a non-participant in practice yesterday. The Bengals also held a walkthrough similar to the Vikings.
Yeah, and that's something that's happening more and more often. This being a short week as well, that it's kind of a simulated. This is if they had practiced, Jamar Chase would have been a non-participant, a DNP. But he's going to play, and JJ's going to play, and it's going to be awesome to see those guys on the field. Hopefully, we're on the right side of it. I would say that into the Saturday game, Saturday at noon. I keep wanting to say Sunday. I hate how they bleep with the schedule. Didn't mind the doubleheader on Monday night. That was kind of cool. Both games, despite Marquis, Jordan Love versus Tommy DeVito. That wasn't exciting. Levis handled business, and.
He did.
And your guy Derrick Henry got him over the hump in the late stages. Both games coming down to the wire. The field goal by the Giants, the late TD by King Henry, and fun games. But the Saturday thing, we get it. You want to monopolize our time. You have. For the most part during football season, we're a one-topic show, 9 to noon. But just let me have a freaking Saturday. Will you, please? But with that said, Saturday, not Sunday. It's a nooner. We'll be doing fan line and overtime. So it's going to be a full day of coverage. Looking forward to that. Hopefully after the Vikings improve to 8-6 after beating the Bengals, we shall see. Many things to break that game down. Still worried about Jake Browning and all of that. You'll hear from the defensive coordinator, final hour, his thoughts on Jake, the challenge he and that offense posed the Vikings this weekend. But let's do News Du Nord, which is presented by The Casino at Canterbury Park. You're either playing bingo on Tuesdays or you're feeling the felt. You're playing poker, blackjack, and table games all year round. Tip your bartenders when you're having sips of chips. But checking out all event details, CanterburyPark.com. What's good, Max?
Let's start over in the association. Draymond Green continues to audition for his post-NBA career as a WWE wrestler. The only problem is he's auditioning in the middle of games. Draymond was ejected in the third quarter of the Warriors' 119-116 loss to the Suns last night after throwing a punch at Joseph Nurkic's head. Draymond apologized after the game and said he didn't mean to punch Nurkic's head, but unless you are a wacky waving inflatable arm tube man, the human body does not move like that on accident. The ejection is his third of the season, and he will now await a league review for the possibility of another suspension should he be suspended. Luckily for Draymond, the WWE Royal Rumble is in January.
Where are you at with Draymond? You know, earlier this year, of course, he's got Rudy in the headlock, the whole thing. I don't think. How can I say this? Rudy was in no danger of being rendered unconscious. Right. Okay, there's a little bit of 7-foot tall guy, falling backwards and flailing his arms, wacky inflatable tube man style. And then Cat goes, hold me back. Hold me back. And frankly, we don't win the game if someone doesn't hold him back or if he engages, because Cat ended up being the difference maker in that win over the Warriors. I'm just tired of him. And I love the personality that he brings. Like Steph's like steely, stone cold killer. Right. Clay's been more like holding up 4 fingers for the rings lately. He's been doing a lot of that from the bench in recent years.
He's coasting on that one a little bit.
As a matter of fact, I think he's been in street clothes holding it up a fair amount, given, sadly, and he's one of the great outside shooters in NBA history, he's just been injured. And so he's had to battle that. But then there's the clown. And Draymond has been the guy, and, I think they went down the road when he got suspended after the Wolves game, like, if Steph's not playing, there's an infinitely greater chance that Draymond's just going to be bored with the whole thing and try and start a fight with somebody.
Someone even crunched the numbers, and more times than not that Steph wasn't playing, Draymond did find his way to get suspended or ejected.
But man, he punched Jordan Poole one time in practice.
Yeah,
I mean, he just can't help himself. I'm kind of done with Draymond, like I'm done with Dobbs.
Yeah, I'm kind of over it too. The problem is he's been this guy. It's not. I would say he seems a little bit more aggressive this season, but the problem is the Warriors don't have the same success as a team. We all kind of collectively ignored it when they were winning games and winning championships. And I mean, as an NBA historian, a lot of teams have a guy that's a single-minded psychopath that only focuses on defense. That's not a new role on an NBA team.
I think you need that guy.
Yeah, you kind of do. Yeah. The Wolves could use a guy like that. But lately, he's just been taking it too far, and it all seems more to be not to be a Draymond defender, but in the past, it seemed to be in service of the team, in service of a win, in service of the success of the Warriors. But lately, it's just seemed to be out of pure frustration and anger. So I'm over it. I think they kind of need to put their foot down a little bit more on this one, considering that how wild and erratic he's been this season already when it's December. It's not even Christmas yet. And we're talking about this is his third possible ejection from a game. And yesterday was just a little far, man. You can't be, for the sake of other players' safety, you can't just be throwing punches at people's faces.
No, I don't like that. And the tough thing is, I've seen Draymond on 100 podcasts. I've seen him do interviews. I also like Draymond.
Me too. He's a smart guy. He's
super bright and thoughtful.
Open guy. And he knows the game of basketball. He's not just some idiot out there that's only doing... Like, he's not like a hockey enforcer that's your only job is to go out there and fight. Draymond is a fantastic basketball player. Unfortunately, this is just all taken away from it.
You can tell me if this is dumb, and it's fine. I say a lot of dumb things. I look at this with Draymond, and I look at what we saw with the petulant temper tantrum that Patrick Mahomes threw the other day, and I look at them. They're vastly different stages of life, different career, different sports. Get it? But I'm looking at two both in some ways could be considered a dynasty. The Chiefs certainly not as close to the end maybe as what the Warriors are.
Right.
But both are gripping. Both are experiencing a situation where it's not push button out west anymore with the Dubs. And it hasn't been push button all season with the Chiefs in a lot of ways as well. And so when something has been so comfortable and come so easy for such a long period of time, 5 straight AFC title berths, Mahomes still hasn't been forced to play a road playoff game. I mean, all those things coming in, I look at both situations, very different, but both telling me that things aren't all good in the house. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that 100% makes sense. I wouldn't have made that connection, but that's a really apt comparison right there.
Thank you.
Both teams experiencing hardship for the first time, and not just hardship, but self-inflicted hardship. Draymond Green getting the Warriors into sticky situations, and injuries and bad play getting the Warriors into bad situations, and the Chiefs, I mean, we don't even have to talk about that. That's been spoken about ad nauseum. So it's not even just that they're experiencing hardship, it's self-inflicted wounds that those two top-tier, top-notch professional level dynasties, as you could say, have never experienced before in recent memory.
I like the cut of your jib, and I like your Larry Bird jersey. Anything else? What do we got here?
What's next? You talked about it earlier with Mike Florio. Patriots owner Robert Kraft reportedly made the decision to part ways with Bill Belichick after New England's Week 10 loss to the Colts in Germany. The report also says that the parting of ways could include a trade of Belichick to a new team, hence the decision to not fire Bill during the season.
Yeah, there have been reports throughout the year. There was actually, and I forget who wrote it, but somebody, and maybe it was the same NBC Sports Boston guy that has now since come out again and reported on it, that into that game in Germany, that there were rumblings that if things don't go the right way overseas on the international stage, that this could be it for Belichick in full of weeks, and here we are talking about it again. Best coach in NFL history, one of the great awful GMs. It's just if you could separate those two versions of Belichick and just think at the rosy one, he's the greatest coach in NFL history. The accolades speak for themselves, with or without Tom Brady. That tandem is the greatest of tandems in NFL history from a winning standpoint. His draft day decisions have been up and down, to say the freaking least, over the course of time. And I just can't picture him coaching somewhere else. I don't know. Is it in the similar vein that I would have said the same thing in 2018 with Tom Brady, and he comes back. I think they make the playoffs in 2019, The Patriots do, and they may have lost to the Titans. I think Brady's he threw a pick 6 or something late in that wild card weekend playoff game, and then he went to Tampa. In the same vein that I could say at that time, I never would have seen him retiring and unretiring and playing that game and then going somewhere else. I'm kind of feeling the same way about Belichick. I've heard reports, or maybe those of you out there, you've read or heard this too, that the Chargers might be a spot for Belichick in the offseason. I love that. The offense, it needs to change. I don't know why. What's happening with this? It's almost you're reliving the same nightmare if you're a Chargers fan, of all those games and all those stats that Phillip Rivers accrued over the course of his career, and in the end it resulted in one AFC title game in which he played with a torn ACL. So he's living in lore, he's living in legend, he's got 12 kids, so that's all cool, but you didn't find your way to a Super Bowl. And this Justin Herbert thing feels the same way. He's going to put up all those yards, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and maybe Quentin Johnston, the TCU kid, turns out. You have Eckler, but Eckler's not very good. Now it's Josh Kelly. Who the hell's Joshua Kelly? It's just ugly down there, but that defense feels like something that Belichick could work with. I don't know. I just can't see him coaching another team. It's super weird, but wherever he goes, don't let him pick the draft picks, okay? That's probably going to be part of it. If Belichick rolls in, he gets to say what he wants to do and how he's going to do it, and he's probably going to want to own the draft, and it's not going to go well. So, but yeah, it's weird, man, and that's why I connected Flores to that bit. 2 teams for me. It's either the Steelers or the Patriots. You heard Florio say that Gerard Mayo, former Patriots player, or Mike Vrabel, current Titans coach and former Super Bowl winning linebacker, caught touchdown passes. The linebacker did, Mike Vrabel, back in the day. Now he's coaching your Titans. Would you do a Vrabel for Belichick trade?
It would be weird, but see, that's the thing about the Titans. It depends on the GM bit. Like you said, the Titans have been, talk about bad drafting. They have been awful with their talent scouting over the last 3, 4, 5 years.
I think it's Monty Ossenfort. I don't know if he's still the guy. No, he's the GM of the Cardinals now. Maybe he was in Tennessee before. Do you even know who the GM is?
I think they just got rid of their GM last year, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah.
Is he responsible for Traylon Burks?
Oh my God. Please don't. That's like a curse word around me. Oh yeah, it's Ran Carthon. I remember hearing about
Carthon.
that. Yeah, because he sounds like a Star Wars character.
He actually kind of does, and that's how we're going to. I know you got a couple because Wolves off today, Wild off today. I want to get into the Howl specifically, and maybe we'll have some time to do that throughout the final hour. But we are hitting it with some hockey next, and Pat Micheletti. Haven't seen him, it feels like, in ages. He's Mullins mania, but he's also on the Hines bandwagon. John Hines and the Minnesota Wild, winners 5 of their last 7. They host the Calgary Flames tomorrow. We're going to catch up with Mick and see what he thinks about the hockey team, what he thinks about the new coach, and where things are going in St. Paul. That's going to kick off the final hour. Then we'll jump back into some news nugs, more of your text messages, and some audio from defensive coordinator Brian Flores addressing the media yesterday. It's Nordo in for PA on a Wednesday, and it's 9 to noon on the Fan.